Chinedu Okonkwo loved walking through busy places. He always said that markets were the heartbeat of Nigeria. Noisy, chaotic, and full of life. It didn't matter that he owned one of the biggest tech companies in Africa or that his face was often in magazines. In these markets, no one noticed him. To everyone here, he was just another man trying to find his way through the crowd. On this particular Saturday, Chinedu had convinced his wife, Adaora, to join him on one of his trips. They were at Balogun Market, one of Lagos' largest and busiest markets. Adaora wasn't thrilled about it. "Chinedu, why do you always want to come to places like this?" she asked, holding tightly to his arm as they maneuvered through the narrow pathways between stalls. "Because this is where you see real life," Chinedu replied with a small smile. "If I stay in my air-conditioned office or our fancy house all the time, how will I know what people go through?" Adaora sighed. "I understand, but must we come when it's this crowded? Someone stepped on my foot twice already." Chinedu chuckled. "That's part of the experience. Besides, I want to check on that tech repair initiative we funded here." They stopped at a small stall where a young man was busy repairing mobile phones. The sign above the stall read, "Fix it fast," with "supported by the Okonkwo Foundation" written in smaller letters beneath. Chinedu watched as the young man worked quickly, his hands moving with skill and precision. "Good afternoon," Chinedu greeted, his voice warm. The young man looked up, slightly startled. "Good afternoon, sir. Can I help you?" "Just checking in," Chinedu said. "How's business?" The young man hesitated, then smiled. "It's going well, sir. Thank you for giving me this chance. I've been able to save some money and even hired an assistant last week." Chinedu nodded, pleased. "Good to hear. Keep working hard, and don't forget to pay it forward someday." Adaora watched the exchange silently. She knew how much these visits meant to her husband, but she still didn't fully understand why he insisted on blending in. To her, it sometimes felt unnecessary. They had done their part by funding these projects. Wasn't that enough? As they walked away from the stall, Chinedu suddenly stopped in front of a small fruit stand. "Let's get some bananas," he said, reaching for his wallet. That's when it happened. A loud, arrogant voice cut through the market noise. "Hey, watch where you're going, you idiot." Chinedu and Adaora turned to see a tall man in designer clothes standing a few feet away. He was holding a pair of sunglasses, waving them angrily at a young boy who looked terrified. The boy had accidentally bumped into him while carrying a basket of vegetables. The man's name, as Chinedu would soon learn, was Deji. He was known around the market for his temper and entitlement. His father owned several stalls in the area, and Deji often acted like he owned the entire market. Deji's voice grew louder. "Do you know how much these sunglasses cost? They're ruined now. Who's going to pay for this?" The boy stammered, "I'm sorry, sir. It was an accident." "Sorry?" Deji sneered. "Sorry doesn't fix anything. Do you have money to replace these glasses?" By now, a small crowd had gathered. Chinedu and Adaora were among them, watching silently. Adaora's grip on Chinedu's arm tightened. "Let's go," she whispered. "This isn't our business." But before they could leave, Deji's attention shifted. His eyes locked on Chinedu. "You there?" "Yes, you." Deji pointed at him. "You look like someone who can afford to pay. Why don't you settle this for the boy?" Chinedu frowned but didn't respond immediately. He wasn't a fan of public confrontations, but Deji's tone was getting on his nerves. "I don't know you," Chinedu said calmly. "Why should I pay for something that doesn't concern me?" Deji's eyes narrowed. "Because you're standing there like you're better than everyone else. Or is it because you don't have the money?" Is that it?" The crowd murmured, some of them amused, others uneasy. Chinedu could feel Adaora's tension beside him. "Let it go," she whispered again. "It's not worth it." But Deji wasn't done. He stepped closer, his voice dripping with mockery. "Look at you, walking around like a big man in your cheap clothes. And you, madam," he said, turning to Adaora, "why are you following this broke man? Don't you want better for yourself?" Adaora's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Chinedu's jaw tightened, but he held his ground. "Insulting people you don't know doesn't make you a better person," Chinedu said, his voice steady. Deji laughed. Look at this one, giving me advice. If you had money, you'd be in a car, not walking through this market like the rest of us. Before Chinidu could reply, Deji's hand shot out, shoving him backward. The crowd gasped as Chinidu stumbled but managed to stay on his feet. Edaora let out a small cry and grabbed his arm. Let's go, she said firmly. Please. Chinidu took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving Deji's face. Then, without a word, he turned and began walking away, Edaora clinging to his side. The crowd parted to let them through, whispers following them. Who is that guy? Someone muttered. He looks familiar. Doesn't matter, another voice replied. He let himself get pushed around. He's nobody. Edaora didn't say anything until they were far from the market. When they finally reached their car, she turned to him, her eyes filled with frustration and concern. Why did you let him do that? She asked. Why didn't you stand up for yourself? Chinidu smiled faintly, though his eyes were serious. Because it's not about winning an argument in the moment. People like him, they dig their own graves. And when the time comes, I'll be ready. Edaora stared at him, still unsure. But she knew her husband well enough to trust his words. Whatever he was planning, she could tell it wasn't over. Chinidu didn't say much as they drove home from the market. Edaora sat beside him, her arms crossed, staring out of the window. The tension in the car was thick, and the silence made it even heavier. She wasn't angry at him. She was worried. The humiliation they had just faced replayed in her mind, and every time she thought about it, her chest tightened. Finally, she couldn't hold it in anymore. Chinidu, you can't just let things like that happen, she said, her voice trembling. That man humiliated you in front of everyone. In front of me. Chinidu glanced at her, his face calm but unreadable. Ada, I know it wasn't easy to watch, but I had my reasons. What reasons? She snapped, turning to face him. You could have said something, done something. Instead, you let him insult you and push you around like you were nobody. He sighed, his hands steady on the steering wheel. People like Deji only understand power when it's shown to them at the right time. You don't fight in the mud with someone like that. You let them think they've won, and then you show them who you really are. Edaora shook her head. But how long will you keep doing this? Pretending to be someone you're not? I know you want to stay connected to the people, but sometimes it feels like you're hiding who you are. Chinidu didn't respond immediately. He pulled into their driveway and parked the car, turning off the engine. The house, a sprawling yet modest-looking building surrounded by high walls, loomed in the distance. He sat back in his seat and looked at Edaora. I'm not hiding, he said quietly. I'm observing, and today gave me all the information I need. Edaora's brow furrowed. What information? That Deji is a problem I need to solve. Chinidu's voice was steady but carried a weight that made Edaora pause. Not just for me, but for everyone he's been bullying in that market. Edaora sighed, her anger softening. She reached out and placed a hand on his. Just promise me you'll be careful. I don't want this to get out of hand. Chinidu smiled faintly. I promise. The next day, Chinidu was back in his office. A sleek, modern space filled with large windows and minimalist furniture. He sat at his desk, scrolling through reports on his laptop. The Okonkwo Foundation's projects were running smoothly, but his focus kept drifting back to the market and Deji. Amaka, he called out to his assistant through the intercom. Yes, sir, her voice crackled back. Can you come in for a moment? A few seconds later, Amaka stepped into the office. She was a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her mid-30s who had worked with Chinidu for years. She knew him well enough to recognize when something was bothering him. What can I do for you, sir? She asked, standing at attention. I need you to find everything you can about a man named Deji, Chinidu said, leaning back in his chair. He's the son of Chief Alyawol, who owns some stalls in Balagan Market. I want to know his connections, his finances, everything. Amaka's eyebrows rose slightly, but she nodded. Consider it done. Anything specific you're looking for? Chinidu's expression darkened slightly. I want to know who's been enabling him. Someone like Deji doesn't get that much power on his own. Amaka's lips tightened into a thin line. Understood. I'll have a report for you by tomorrow. As she left, Chinedu leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. He wasn't angry about the incident at the market, not for himself at least, but he couldn't stand the thought of people like Deji abusing their power and getting away with it. Meanwhile, at the market, Deji was basking in the attention from his friends. They sat outside one of his father's stalls, laughing and recounting the previous day's events. "Did you see his face?" Deji said, grinning. "That man didn't even know what to do. Just stood there like a fool." One of his friends, Bayo, laughed. The way his wife was holding him back. I thought she was going to beg for his life. People like that should know their place, Deji added, leaning back in his chair. If you don't have money or power, you shouldn't be walking around like you do. The group laughed again, their voices loud enough to draw stares from passers-by. Some people looked on disapprovingly, but no one dared to say anything. Deji's reputation was well known, and most people in the market preferred to avoid him altogether. But not everyone was willing to stay silent. A middle-aged woman selling vegetables nearby muttered under her breath, "One day, your mouth will get you into trouble." Deji heard her and turned sharply. "What did you say?" The woman didn't look up. "Nothing. Just talking to myself." Deji stood and walked over to her stall, towering over her. "If you have something to say it to my face." The woman finally looked up, her expression calm but firm. "I said your mouth will get you into trouble one day. That's all." Deji sneered. "And who's going to cause that trouble? You?" He glanced at her stall. "Be careful, Mama Chinyere. It would be a shame if something happened to your little business here." Mama Chinyere's eyes flashed with anger, but she bit her tongue. She had a family to feed and couldn't afford to lose her stall. Deji smirked and walked away, leaving her seething in silence. By the next evening, Amaka returned to Chinedu's office with a thick folder in her hands. She placed it on his desk and sat down across from him. "What did you find?" Chinedu asked, opening the folder. "A lot," Amaka said. "Deji's father, Chief Aluwol, is deeply in debt. He's been borrowing money to keep his businesses afloat, but most of it's gone to fund Deji's lavish lifestyle. Expensive cars, designer clothes, trips abroad. You name it." Chinedu's jaw tightened. "What about the market?" "Deji has been using his father's name to bully the traders," Amaka continued. "He demands bribes, threatens to have stalls shut down, and takes money from the traders' earnings. Most of them are too scared to stand up to him." Chinedu closed the folder, his expression grim. "It's worse than I thought." Amaka nodded. "What's the plan, sir?" Chinedu leaned back in his chair, a determined look in his eyes. "First, we need to cut off his father's financial support. If Chief Aluwol can't pay his debts, we'll have leverage. Then we'll deal with Deji directly." Amaka smirked. "This is going to be interesting." Chinedu's lips curved into a faint smile. "It's time Deji learned what real power looks like." Chinedu sat at his desk, staring at the folder Amaka had brought in. The more he thought about Deji and Chief Aluwol, the angrier he became. It wasn't just about the incident at the market anymore. This was about all the people who had been suffering because of their greed and arrogance. He couldn't let it slide. He reached for his phone and dialed Amaka's extension. She picked up almost immediately. "Yes, sir," she said. "Call Mr. Yusuf from the legal department," Chinedu instructed. "I need to meet with him right away, and prepare the debt portfolio on Chief Aluwol. I want every detail." "I'll arrange it now," Amaka replied. Chinedu hung up and leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. This wasn't going to be easy, but he was ready for the challenge. People like Deji only understood one language: consequences. 2 hours later, Chinedu sat across from Mr. Yusuf, his company's top legal officer. The man was in his early 50s with a sharp mind and years of experience handling tough cases. "I've reviewed Chief Aluwol's debt portfolio, sir," Yusuf began, adjusting his glasses. "It's not looking good for him. He owes significant amounts to multiple creditors, and most of his properties are tied up as collateral." Chinedu nodded. "What's his current repayment status?" He's barely meeting the minimum payments, Yusuf explained. And from what we can see, he's been diverting funds to cover his son's extravagant lifestyle. If we call in the debts now, he'll lose everything. Chinidu's jaw tightened. That's exactly what I want to do. But not yet. I want to give him a chance to correct himself first. Draft a formal notice of default and send it to him. Make it clear that he has 30 days to settle his arrears or face legal action. Yusuf hesitated. Do you think he'll comply? No, Chinidu said bluntly. But this isn't just about him. It's about sending a message to his son and everyone else watching. They need to know there are consequences for their actions. Yusuf nodded. Understood. I'll get started on it immediately. As Yusuf left the room, Amaka walked in, carrying a tablet. Sir, I've compiled additional information on Deji. Would you like to review it now? Go ahead, Chinidu said, gesturing for her to sit. Amaka pulled up a document on her tablet and began reading aloud. Aside from his activities at the market, Deji has been involved in several questionable deals. He's been using his father's connections to secure contracts, but he's notorious for not delivering on his promises. Several small business owners have reported being scammed by him. Chinidu's expression darkened. How has he gotten away with it for so long? Fear, Amaka replied. Most of his victims are too scared to speak out because of his father's influence. And those who do speak up often don't have the resources to take legal action. Chinidu shook his head. It's disgusting. People like him think they're untouchable. But that ends now. Amaka leaned forward, her voice dropping slightly. Sir, if I may ask, what exactly is your plan? Are you looking to ruin him? Or are you trying to teach him a lesson? Chinidu paused for a moment, thinking carefully. I don't want to ruin anyone, he said finally. But I do want him to understand the damage he's caused. And I want him to change. If that means hitting him where it hurts first, so be it. Amaka nodded, a hint of admiration in her eyes. I'll support you however I can. At the market, Deji's mood was unusually sour. The traders who usually cowered before him were acting differently. Whispers about Chinidu's quiet power had started spreading, and some of the braver traders were no longer as afraid of Deji as they once were. He sat in his usual spot outside his father's main stall, glaring at anyone who dared to make eye contact. Bayo, his closest friend, tried to lighten the mood. Deji, relax, Bayo said, patting him on the shoulder. You're acting like someone's already beaten you. Shut up, Bayo, Deji snapped. Something's not right. Can feel it. Bayo raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Deji leaned closer, lowering his voice. That man from the other day, the one I pushed. There's something off about him. He didn't react like a regular person. And now, everyone in this market is acting like they know something I don't. Bayo shrugged. Maybe you're just paranoid. You scared him and now he's too afraid to come back. End of story. Deji wasn't convinced. No, people like him don't just disappear. He's planning something. I need to find out who he is. Bayo sighed. Alright, but don't do anything stupid. Your dad's already stressed about the business. He doesn't need you making things worse. Deji waved him off. Don't worry about me. I know what I'm doing. Later that evening, Chief Aluwal received the formal notice of default from Chinidu's legal team. He sat in his lavish living room, reading the document with a deep frown. The words legal action and property seizure jumped out at him, making his heart race. He called Deji into the room. Deji, come here. Now. Deji sauntered in, looking bored. What is it, Dad? Chief Aluwal held up the document. Do you have any idea what this is? Deji squinted at the paper. A letter? What about it? It's from one of our creditors, Chief Aluwal snapped. They're threatening to take legal action if we don't settle our debts. And do you know why we're in this mess? Because of your reckless spending. Deji rolled his eyes. Oh, here we go again. Everything's my fault, right? Yes, it is. Chief Aluwal shouted, slamming the document onto the table. Do you think money grows on trees? I've been working myself to the bone to keep this family afloat. And all you do is waste it on nonsense. Deji's face darkened. If you can't handle the pressure, Maybe you shouldn't have taken those loans in the first place. Chief Oluwole stared at him, his hands trembling with anger. You ungrateful boy. Do you even understand the danger we're in? If we lose everything, you'll have no cars, no fancy clothes, nothing. Is that what you want? Deji clenched his fists. I'll fix it. Just give me some time. How? Chief Oluwole demanded. What can you possibly do to fix this mess? Deji didn't answer. He stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. Chief Oluwole sank into his chair, burying his face in his hands. For the first time, he felt the weight of his decisions crushing down on him. In his office, Chinedu reviewed the final steps of his plan. The pieces were falling into place, and soon, Deji and Chief Oluwole would have no choice but to face the consequences of their actions. But this wasn't just about punishment. Chinedu hoped that, in the end, they would learn something from the experience. He picked up his phone and dialed Amaka. It's time to move forward, he said. Let's see how they handle the pressure. Amaka's voice was calm but determined. Consider it done, sir. Chief Oluwole's house was unusually quiet. The tension that had settled after his argument with Deji still lingered like a dark cloud. Oluwole sat in his study, staring at the pile of letters on his desk. Most of them were from creditors, demanding payments he couldn't afford. But one letter stood out. The one from Chinedu's legal team. He picked it up again, his hands trembling. The words, legal action, and property seizure, seemed to mock him every time he read them. His mind raced. How had it come to this? His businesses were once thriving, and his name commanded respect. Now, everything felt like it was slipping away. Deji, he shouted, his voice echoing through the house. There was no response. He called again, louder this time. Moments later, Deji appeared at the door, his face set in a scowl. What now, Dad? Deji asked, crossing his arms. Chief Oluwole glared at him. Sit down. We need to talk. Deji hesitated but eventually slouched into a chair. I'm listening. Oluwole held up the letter. Do you understand what this means? If we don't pay what we owe, they'll take everything. The shops, the house, even the cars. We'll have nothing left. Deji rolled his eyes. You've been saying that for weeks, Dad. And yet, here we are. Still in the house, still driving the cars. Don't you dare take this lightly. Oluwole snapped, slamming his hand on the desk. This isn't a game, Deji. If we lose, there's no coming back. Deji leaned forward, his expression defiant. Then fix it. Isn't that your job? You're the one who took the loans, not me. Oluwole's eyes widened in disbelief. Are you seriously blaming me? Do you know how much I've sacrificed for this family? For you? Everything I've done has been to give you a better life, and this is how you repay me. Deji shrugged. Maybe if you'd managed your money better, we wouldn't be in this mess. The room fell silent. Oluwole stared at his son, his face a mixture of anger and sorrow. You don't understand, do you? You've never had to work for anything. You've never had to fight to survive. Everything you have, I gave you. And now, because of your recklessness, we're about to lose it all. Deji's defiance wavered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. All right, fine. What do you want me to do? I want you to grow up, Oluwole said, his voice heavy with frustration. I want you to take responsibility for your actions and start helping instead of making things worse. Deji smirked. And how exactly do you expect me to do that? You want me to wave a magic wand and make all the debts disappear? No, Oluwole said sharply. I want you to stop wasting money. Stop bullying people at the market. Stop acting like you're untouchable because you're not. If you don't change, this will destroy us. Deji stood up, his face hard. You're overreacting. I'll handle it my way. Your way. Oluwole repeated, his voice rising. Your way is what got us into this mess. If you leave this room without taking this seriously, don't bother coming back. Deji froze, surprised by his father's words. He turned back slowly. What did you say? You heard me, Oluwole said, his tone firm. This is your last chance, Deji. Either you start acting like a man, or you're on your own. Deji's jaw clenched, but he didn't respond. Instead, He stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. Aluwol slumped in his chair, exhausted. He had no idea how they were going to get through this, but he knew one thing for sure. Deji couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change. At the same time, Chinedu was finalizing plans for his charity gala. The event was set to take place at one of Lagos' most prestigious hotels, and the guest list included some of the city's most influential figures. Chief Aluwol and Deji were among the invitees, though they had no idea what Chinedu had planned. Amaka entered his office with a clipboard in hand. "Sir, the final preparations for the gala are complete. Everything is on schedule." Chinedu nodded. "Good. And the invitations?" "Sent and confirmed," Amaka replied. "Chief Aluwol and his son will be attending." Chinedu smiled faintly. "Perfect. This is the moment we've been building toward." Amaka hesitated. "Sir, if I may ask, what exactly are you planning to do at the gala? Are you going to confront them publicly?" Chinedu's expression softened. "I'm not looking to humiliate anyone, Amaka, but they need to see the consequences of their actions. And more importantly, they need to understand that change is possible. Sometimes, a public moment of reckoning is the only way to make that happen." Amaka nodded, though her face remained serious. "I hope it works, sir. For their sake and for yours." The night of the gala arrived, and the hotel's grand ballroom was buzzing with activity. Guests in elegant attire mingled over cocktails, discussing business, politics, and philanthropy. Chinedu stood near the entrance, greeting attendees with a warm smile. Adaora stood beside him, her presence calm and reassuring. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. Chinedu glanced at her, his smile fading slightly. "I hope so. This isn't just about them. It's about sending a message to everyone here, that we all have a responsibility to do better." Adaora placed a hand on his arm. "You'll do great. I believe in you." As the evening progressed, Chief Aluwol and Deji arrived. They entered the ballroom with their usual air of confidence, though Aluwol looked noticeably tense. Deji, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease, as if he had nothing to worry about. Chinedu watched them from across the room, his expression unreadable. He waited until the dinner service had ended and the room grew quiet in anticipation of his speech. Slowly, he stepped onto the stage, a microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice steady. "Thank you all for being here tonight. As many of you know, the Okonkwo Foundation was created to empower and uplift those who need it most. But tonight, I want to talk about something more personal." The room fell silent. All eyes were on him, including those of Chief Aluwol and Deji. "A few weeks ago, I had an experience that reminded me why this work is so important," Chinedu continued. "I was in a market, observing one of our foundation's initiatives, when I encountered a young man who had built his life on intimidation and exploitation. That encounter showed me the damage that unchecked power and privilege can cause." Deji's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of unease crossing his face. Aluwol's jaw tightened. "But it also reminded me of something else," Chinedu said, his gaze sweeping the room, "that even those who make mistakes have the capacity to change. And sometimes, all it takes is someone willing to show them the way." He paused, letting his words sink in. Then, with deliberate calm, he turned to face Chief Aluwol and Deji. "Chief Aluwol," he said, his voice carrying across the room, "your businesses have been a cornerstone of this community for years, but they have also been a source of pain for many. Tonight, I invite you to join me in making things right." The room was utterly silent. All eyes were now on Aluwol and Deji. Aluwol looked pale, his hands gripping the edge of the table. Deji's confident facade had cracked, replaced by a mix of anger and confusion. "This isn't about humiliation," Chinedu continued. "It's about accountability. And more importantly, it's about redemption. The question is, are you ready to take that step?" The ballroom remained completely silent. Every guest's eyes were fixed on Chief Aluwol and Deji, who now looked like deer caught in headlights. Chinedu's words hung heavy in the air, and for a moment, it seemed like neither father nor son knew how to respond. Chief Oluwole shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his fingers nervously drumming against the table. Deji, on the other hand, clenched his jaw tightly and looked around the room as though searching for an escape. Chinedu stayed calm, letting the silence stretch. He wasn't rushing them. This moment wasn't just about exposing them. It was about making them reflect on the consequences of their actions. Finally, Oluwole cleared his throat, breaking the tension. Mr. Okonkwo, he began, his voice shaky but trying to sound composed. I don't know what you mean by making things right. My businesses have always operated honestly. A murmur ran through the crowd. Chinedu tilted his head slightly, his gaze unwavering. Chief Oluwole, with all due respect, you and I both know that's not true. I have evidence of unpaid debts, intimidation tactics at the market, and misuse of funds. Oluwole's face flushed red. That's not entirely accurate. Business is complicated. There are circumstances. Chinedu raised a hand, silencing him gently. I'm not here to argue or to humiliate you. I'm here to offer you an opportunity to change. Deji couldn't hold back anymore. He stood abruptly, pushing his chair back so hard it scraped loudly against the floor. Change? Opportunity? Who do you think you are to lecture us? He spat, his voice loud and defiant. You think because you have some money and throw around big words, you can come here and tell us how to live our lives? Chinedu's gaze shifted to Deji, calm but firm. This isn't about me telling you how to live. It's about accountability. Do you even understand the harm you've caused to the traders in the market? To your father's businesses? Deji laughed bitterly. The traders? The businesses? Please, those people survive because of us. If anything, they should be grateful for what we've done for them. Gasps rippled through the room. Even Chief Oluwole turned to Deji, his eyes wide with shock. Deji, enough, he said, his voice low but urgent. But Deji wasn't done. He pointed at Chinedu, his finger trembling with anger. You think you're better than me, don't you? Walking into that market like you're one of them. But you're just another rich man pretending to care. At least I don't hide who I am. Chinedu remained unshaken. He took a deep breath before responding. You're right about one thing, Deji. I am a rich man. But the difference between us is that I understand where I came from. I haven't forgotten the people who helped me get here. And I certainly don't use my position to hurt others. Deji's fists balled at his sides. But before he could retort, Chief Oluwole stood abruptly. Deji, sit down, he said, his voice firm and commanding. Deji hesitated, his pride fighting with his father's authority. Slowly, he lowered himself back into his chair, glaring at Chinedu the entire time. Oluwole took a deep breath, turning back to Chinedu. Mr. Okonkwo, he said, his tone more measured now. You've made your point, but what exactly are you proposing? Chinedu nodded slightly, grateful for the shift in tone. Chief Oluwole, I'm proposing a chance for redemption. I'm willing to work with you to restructure your debts and help your businesses get back on track. But in return, you must commit to ethical practices. No more bribes, no more intimidation, and no more exploitation. Oluwole's brow furrowed. And what about my son? Chinedu's gaze flickered to Deji, who was still fuming. Deji will need to take responsibility for his actions. I'm offering him a position in my foundation, where he will work directly with the traders he's wronged. It's time he understands the value of hard work and the impact of his behavior. Deji scoffed. You're joking, right? You want me to work for you? Under you? Never. Chief Oluwole turned to his son, his face stern. Deji, this isn't a choice. If you don't do this, we lose everything. Deji's jaw dropped. You're taking his side? I'm taking the side of survival, Oluwole snapped. You think I want to do this? You think I want to swallow my pride and admit I've failed? But this is our reality, Deji. If we don't change, we're finished. Deji's face twisted with anger, but he didn't respond. He crossed his arms and slumped back in his chair, refusing to meet anyone's gaze. Chinedu looked back at Oluwole. Chief, this is your chance to turn things around. What do you say? Oluwole hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Finally, he nodded slowly. We'll do it. But I need your assurance that this isn't just about punishing us. I need to know you're serious about helping. Chinedu extended his hand. You have my word. Aluwal shook it, though his grip was weak. The room erupted into murmurs as the guests processed what had just happened. Chinedu stepped off the stage, walking back to Adaora, who greeted him with a proud smile. You handled that well, she said softly. Let's hope it makes a difference, Chinedu replied. As the evening wound down, Chinedu watched from a distance as Aluwal and Deji left the ballroom. Aluwal looked defeated, while Deji's expression was a mixture of anger and frustration. Chinedu could only hope that this would be the beginning of their transformation. Deji had never felt this angry in his entire life. He stormed into his room and slammed the door so hard the frame rattled. The humiliation from the gala still burned inside him like fire. Everyone had looked at him like he was a joke. Even his own father had sided with that man, Chinedu. He paced back and forth, clenching and unclenching his fists. Work for him? Work under him? He muttered angrily to himself. Never, never in my life. There was a knock on the door. Deji, Chief Aluwal's voice called from the other side. Firm but weary. Let me in. Deji ignored him and continued pacing. Another knock, louder this time. Deji, open this door right now, his father commanded. With a frustrated groan, Deji yanked the door open. What? He snapped, glaring at his father. Aluwal stepped inside, his face lined with exhaustion. He closed the door behind him and leaned against it. You need to calm down and listen to me. Calm down, Deji repeated, his voice rising. You embarrassed me tonight. You let that man humiliate us in front of everyone. And now you want me to work for him? Are you out of your mind? Aluwal's face hardened. Embarrass you? Deji, do you even understand what's happening? We are on the verge of losing everything. If we don't take this opportunity, we're finished. Done. Do you get that? Deji folded his arms and looked away. We'll figure something else out. We don't need him. Figure something else out? Aluwal repeated, his voice dripping with disbelief. What plan do you have, Deji? Tell me, because from where I'm standing, you've done nothing but drag us deeper into this mess. Do you think money will magically appear? Deji's lips tightened, but he didn't respond. You don't get it, do you? Aluwal continued, his voice rising. This isn't about pride anymore. It's about survival. Chinedu is giving us a lifeline, and you're too stubborn to see it. Why should I work for him? Deji finally burst out. He's not better than us, Dad. He's just another rich man pretending to care. I don't need to learn anything from him. Aluwal's hand slammed against the wall, startling Deji. You do need to learn, Deji. You need to learn what it means to work for something, to take responsibility for your actions. You've spent your whole life taking without giving anything back. That ends now. For a moment, the room was silent except for their heavy breathing. Deji's chest heaved with anger, but his father's words had struck something deep within him. Still, he refused to back down. So what? You want me to go to the market and beg those traders for forgiveness? He said bitterly. You want me to be their servant? Yes, Aluwal said bluntly. If that's what it takes to make things right, then yes. You will go there, you will work, and you will learn humility. Deji stared at him, stunned. His father's voice was so final, so resolute, that he didn't know how to respond. Finally, he shook his head and turned away. I'm not doing it. You don't have a choice, Aluwal said quietly. If you refuse, you're on your own. No more money, no more support. You'll have to figure out your own way in life. Deji spun around, his eyes wide. You're serious? Dead serious, Aluwal replied. I've protected you for too long, Deji, but I can't do it anymore. If you're not willing to change, then you're not my responsibility. Deji's throat tightened, but he refused to let his father see any weakness. Fine, he said coldly. I'll do it, but don't expect me to enjoy it. Aluwal sighed, the fight draining out of him. I don't care if you enjoy it, Deji. I just want you to learn. The next morning, Deji arrived at the office of the Okonkwo Foundation. His mood was as sour as the storm clouds gathering in the sky. The receptionist greeted him politely, but he barely acknowledged her. He was escorted to a small meeting room where Chinedu was waiting. "Good morning, Deji," Chinedu said, his tone neutral. "Thank you for coming." Deji didn't sit. He crossed his arms and stared at Chinedu. "Let's just get this over with." Chinedu raised an eyebrow but didn't comment on Deji's attitude. Instead, he gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit down. We need to discuss your role." With a huff, Deji sat. He drummed his fingers on the table, clearly impatient. "You'll be working as a field officer," Chinedu began. "Your main responsibility will be to assist the traders at Baligan Market. You'll help them manage their finances, organize their businesses, and address any issues they're facing." Deji snorted. "So, basically, you want me to babysit them?" Chinedu's expression didn't change. "No, I want you to learn from them. These traders work harder in one day than you probably have in your entire life. You'll see what it means to earn respect, not demand it." Deji rolled his eyes. "Whatever. When do I start?" "Today," Chinedu said. He stood and handed Deji a folder. "This contains the details of your assignments. I've paired you with someone who will guide you through the process. Her name is Auntie Chinyere. She's been a leader in the market for over 20 years. You'll report to her every day." Deji took the folder reluctantly. "Fine. Anything else?" Chinedu looked him in the eye. "Yes. Leave your pride at the door, Deji. If you go into this thinking you're better than everyone else, you'll fail before you even begin." Deji didn't respond. He stood, gave Chinedu a curt nod, and walked out of the room. When Deji arrived at the market, he immediately felt out of place. The noise, the smells, the hustle and bustle. It was overwhelming. He spotted Auntie Chinyere standing near a fruit stall, her hands on her hips as she barked orders at a young man unloading crates. "You must be Deji," she said, her tone brisk as he approached. "Yeah," he replied, unsure of how to address her. She eyed him critically. "You're late. We start early here. Next time, don't keep me waiting." Deji bit back a retort and nodded. "All right." Auntie Chinyere handed him a clipboard. "Your first task is simple. Go around and talk to the traders. Find out what their biggest challenges are and write them down. Don't try to fix anything yet. Just listen." Deji frowned. "That's it? Just talk to them?" "Yes, talk," she said sharply. "And listen. Properly. Not with that attitude of yours. Now go." Deji sighed and started walking through the market. At every stall, he introduced himself and asked the traders about their struggles. Some were hesitant to speak, but others didn't hold back. "Our rent is too high," one woman complained. "The management keeps increasing it, and we can barely keep up. We need better security," a man said. "Thieves come at night and steal our goods. We've reported it, but nothing happens." Deji scribbled down notes, his frustration growing. By the time he finished, his clipboard was filled with complaints. He returned to Auntie Chinyere, who was waiting with a knowing smile. "So," she asked, "what did you learn?" Deji handed her the clipboard. "That this place is a mess." She chuckled. "Good. Now you're starting to understand. Tomorrow we'll start working on solutions. Get some rest. You're going to need it." Deji walked away, his mind buzzing with everything he had heard. For the first time, he began to see the market not as a place beneath him, but as a world he barely understood. And for the first time, he wondered if Chinedu had been right all along. The morning air in the market was crisp, carrying with it the scent of fresh produce and the faint hum of life waking up. Deji arrived earlier than usual, surprising even himself. For the first time in a long time, he felt uneasy, as though the world was shifting under his feet. The conversations he'd had with the traders yesterday played on a loop in his mind, their frustrations and struggles echoing louder than he liked. Auntie Chinyere was already waiting for him by her stall. Her arms were crossed, and she gave him a sharp nod when she saw him. "You're on time today," she remarked, her tone neutral but her eyes watchful. Deji nodded. "I figured it was better not to keep you waiting." A small smile tugged at the corner of her lips. "Good. Now let's get to work." She handed him a stack of forms. These are for the traders who need help organizing their accounts. Most of them have no idea how to track their income and expenses. You're going to sit with them one by one and help them fill these out. Deji frowned as he flipped through the forms. This is going to take forever. Yes, it will, Auntie Chinyere said matter-of-factly. But that's the job. If you're too impatient, you're welcome to leave. Deji sighed. He wanted to argue, but something about her tone made him bite his tongue. Instead, he followed her to the first stall, where an older woman sat surrounded by baskets of tomatoes and peppers. Mama Nkechi, this is Deji, Auntie Chinyere said, introducing him. He's here to help you with your accounts today. Mama Nkechi's face lit up with a warm smile. Ah, thank you, my son. My head doesn't work well with numbers these days. Deji forced a smile and sat down beside her. All right, Mama, let's get started. As he worked with Mama Nkechi, something unexpected happened. The longer they talked, the more Deji realized how much effort she put into her business. She knew every detail about her inventory, her customers, and even the seasonal fluctuations in prices. But when it came to writing things down, she struggled. You've been doing all this in your head? Deji asked, surprised. Mama Nkechi laughed. For years, my son. But my memory isn't as sharp as it used to be. Deji nodded, impressed despite himself. Well, let's make sure it's all written down from now on. That way, you won't have to rely on memory alone. By the time they finished, Mama Nkechi's account book was neatly filled out, and she was beaming with gratitude. Thank you, Deji. You've made my life much easier today. Deji felt an unfamiliar warmth in his chest. You're welcome, Mama. The day went on like that, with Deji moving from stall to stall, helping traders organize their accounts and listening to their stories. Each interaction chipped away at his initial reluctance. These weren't just traders. They were hardworking people with families to feed and dreams to pursue. For the first time, he started seeing them as more than just faces in a crowd. By late afternoon, Deji was exhausted. He sat on a bench near Auntie Chinyere's stall, wiping sweat from his brow. She approached him with 2 bottles of cold water, handing him one. You've done good work today, she said, sitting beside him. Deji took a long sip of water before replying. Thanks. I didn't think it would be this demanding. Auntie Chinyere chuckled. Hard work usually is. But you handled it better than I expected. Deji looked at her, surprised by the compliment. Really? Don't let it get to your head, she teased. You still have a long way to go. But today you took a step in the right direction. Deji nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. I think I'm starting to understand why Chinedu wanted me to do this. It's not just about the work. It's about the people. Auntie Chinyere's smile softened. Exactly. And if you keep that in mind, you might just surprise yourself. The following weeks were a blur of activity. Deji's days were filled with tasks he would have scoffed at before. Organizing inventories, setting up workshops, and even helping traders paint their stalls. At first, he grumbled about the physical labor, but over time, he found himself complaining less and less. The traders, who had been wary of him at first, began to warm up to him. They shared jokes, meals, and even bits of advice that Deji didn't realize he needed. Slowly but surely, the walls he'd built around himself started to crack. One day, as he was helping a young man fix a broken shelf, Auntie Chinyere pulled him aside. There's something I want you to see, she said, her tone serious. Deji followed her to a small clearing behind the market. A group of children was gathered there, sitting on makeshift benches as a man taught them how to read. Deji watched in silence, his chest tightening. These are the children of the traders, Auntie Chinyere explained. Most of them can't afford proper schooling, so we started this informal class. It's not much, but it's something. Deji swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. How do you pay for this? We pool resources, she said simply. Everyone contributes what they can. But it's not enough. We're always struggling to keep it running. Deji stared at the children, their faces alight with curiosity and hope. For the first time, he felt a pang of guilt for all the times he'd taken his own privileges for granted. He turned to Auntie Chinyere. What can I do to help? She raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by his question. You can start by using that big brain of yours to come up with ideas. You've seen the challenges here. Now figure out how to solve them. Deji nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. I will. Back at home that evening, Deji sat at his desk, scribbling notes furiously. His mind raced with ideas, fundraising events, partnerships with local organizations, even tapping into his father's connections to secure resources. For the first time, he felt like he was working toward something meaningful. Chief Oluwole knocked on the door and stepped inside. You've been quiet today. Everything all right? Deji looked up, his face thoughtful. Yeah, just thinking. Oluwole walked over and glanced at the papers spread across the desk. What's all this? Deji hesitated for a moment before answering. Ideas. For the market. For the traders. I want to help them build something better. Oluwole stared at him, a mix of pride and disbelief in his eyes. You're serious? Yeah, Deji said, nodding. I've wasted so much time, Dad. I need to do something real now. Oluwole placed a hand on his son's shoulder. I'm proud of you, Deji. This is the man I've been waiting to see. For the first time in years, Deji felt a genuine sense of purpose. And he knew deep down that this was just the beginning. Deji stood at the edge of the market, watching the hustle and bustle with a sense of pride he hadn't felt before. The last few weeks had been a whirlwind of activity. He had thrown himself into the work, organizing meetings, helping traders with their finances, and brainstorming ways to improve the market's infrastructure. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was doing something that mattered. Auntie Chinyere approached him, her hands on her hips. You've been standing there for a while, thinking about running away? She teased. Deji smiled faintly. No, just taking it all in. It's different when you're part of it. She nodded, her face softening. You've come a long way, Deji. I wasn't sure you had it in you, but you've surprised me. Thanks, he said, his voice quiet. He hesitated before adding, I'm not sure I deserve the credit, though. It feels like I'm just trying to fix the mess I made. Auntie Chinyere's eyes narrowed. And what's wrong with that? Owning up to your mistakes is the first step. You can't change the past, but you can build a better future. And that's exactly what you're doing. Deji nodded, her words sinking in. Thank you, Auntie Chinyere, for everything. I don't think I could have done this without you. She waved him off. Oh, please, don't get sentimental on me now. There's still work to do. Speaking of which, have you finalized the plans for the trader's workshop? Deji's face lit up. Almost. I've lined up a few speakers and I'm working on getting more sponsors. If it goes well, it could really make a difference. Good, she said with a satisfied nod. Now go. Those forms won't fill themselves. Later that evening, Deji returned home to find his father waiting for him in the living room. Chief Oluwole looked up from the newspaper he was reading and gave his son a small smile. You're late, he said. Busy day. Deji dropped his bag on the floor and sank into a chair. Yeah, but it was a good day. Things are starting to come together at the market. Oluwole nodded. I've been hearing about your progress. The traders are talking, and from what I've heard, they're impressed. It seems like you're making a real impact. Deji looked down, a mixture of pride and humility on his face. I'm just doing what I can. Feels good, though. Like I'm finally doing something that matters. Oluwole leaned forward, his expression serious. Deji, I want you to know how proud I am of you. I'll admit, I didn't think you'd take this seriously, but you've proven me wrong. You've grown up, and I couldn't be happier. Deji's throat tightened. He wasn't used to hearing his father speak like this. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. Oluwole smiled, his eyes glistening. Keep it up, son. The world needs more men like you. The day of the workshop arrived, and the market was abuzz with excitement. Deji had spent weeks planning the event, and he wanted everything to go smoothly. A large tent had been set up in the center of the market, with chairs arranged neatly inside. Traders and their families filled the space, chatting and laughing as they waited for the program to begin. Deji stood at the entrance, greeting people as they arrived. Auntie Chinyere appeared beside him, her face beaming with pride. This is quite the turnout, she said. You've done well, Deji. Thanks, he replied. But it's not just me. Everyone pitched in to make this happen. She gave him a knowing look. Don't downplay your role. You've worked hard for this, and it shows. As the program began, Deji took the stage to address the crowd. His hands trembled slightly as he held the microphone, but he took a deep breath and steadied himself. Good morning, everyone, he began, his voice strong and clear. Thank you all for being here today. This workshop is about more than just improving our businesses. It's about building a community where we can all thrive together. The crowd erupted into applause, and Deji felt a surge of confidence. He continued, sharing stories of the traders he'd worked with and the challenges they'd overcome. He spoke from the heart, and by the time he finished, the audience was on their feet, cheering and clapping. After the event, Chinedu approached Deji, a proud smile on his face. You did well up there, he said. I can see how much you've grown. Deji grinned. Thanks, Mr. Okonkwo. I've learned a lot from this experience. More than I ever thought I would. Chinedu placed a hand on his shoulder. Keep going, Deji. This is just the beginning. You have the potential to do great things, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. Deji nodded, his heart swelling with determination. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was on the right path, and he was ready to see where it would lead.